You are now tuned in to the Cosmic Combos Podcast, your number one source for accurate, relevant, and thought-provoking astrological conversations in the podcast nation. The place where stars and minds align.
Peace. You are now tuned into the Cosmic Convos podcast. I'm your humbled host, Herut, and I got my good brother here, Brother Ra. How you doing, brother?
Brother, definitely well, living and learning, the process of life. How about yourself, King?
Can't complain, man. So, this is the third episode, man. How you feel so far, man? It looks like we got, pretty good feedback on the first two episodes.
I think it's going to be a great show here on out, man. It looks like we're definitely going to be dropping some knowledge to, giving to the people as they need it. And I'm definitely seeing the feedback as positive as well. So I'm feeling real good about it, brother.
Good deal. And speaking of feedback, we got a couple questions, coming from various social media platforms. So, you feel like answering some questions?
Let's get it in.
All right. So one of our brothers from Instagram asked the question if we could spend some time and break down some astrological jargon, asterism, nakshatra, Lord, things like that, because, a lot of people may have not heard those terms before. So maybe if we could, spend, real quick second, just, giving a, basic definition of, those particular terms out there, what they mean.
No problem, brother. No problem. To kind of just jump on the most simplest aspect of the questions, a lord or a ruler is another term for the same word in astrology. And lords or rulers are planets that govern a particular house. So, for example, of course, there's 12 houses, there's 12 signs, and each house is affiliated with a sign. So, for example, if you are a Cancer ascendant, the ascendant lord or the ruler of the first house is the moon, because the moon rules Cancer. The second house from Cancer is Leo, or second sign from Cancer is Leo. So the ruler of the second house is going to be the sun, because the sun rules Cancer. And each one of them will follow the same pattern, one after the other, based on the particular sign that's placed over that particular house. If that makes sense to you, brother, is that clear? Is that clearing it? Does that clear it up, or does that make sense, or do I need to go a little deeper?
No, I think that's a good, good kind of overview of what that is. Now, what about like the terms like asterism and nakshatra? Okay,
so an asterism is basically aster, right? Like astrology and aster, it means of the stars, right? Or it's based on the stars. So an asterism is a portion of the zodiac that we align to an actual star, right? And when we say asterism, we're actually almost synonymously saying nakshatra, because that is the same thing that we're doing. It's just one term is Western and one term is Indian, or for lack of better words, Hindu. So when we say nakshatra is the same delineation of the asterisms, which is cut into 27 parts of the sky. So when I say, for example, Ashwini, or better yet, Shitra is a asterism, and asterism is connected to a star, and that star is called Spica, right? And so when you look up in the night sky, we actually have a set of stars that we can point to that says this portion is allotted to that star. Another one is Regulus. So Regulus is Magha. When we say Magha, we're almost saying Regulus simultaneously. Regulus is the ruler of the asterism slash nakshatra.
Okay. Okay. So yeah, I think those are good, a good kind of overview of what those terms mean. And yeah, so if you're out there when you listen to this, let us know if if that's a good answer for you, and we could definitely. I'm pretty sure we'll probably spend a whole show on that topic alone.
Absolutely.
Yeah, the lunar mansions and different things like that. We got one more coming in from Facebook. Brother wanted to know if we could do a show on the astrological significance of the pyramids of Giza.
Absolutely. That'd be a phenomenal show to do. The pyramids of Giza are, without a doubt, aligned to the constellation Orion. And the constellation Orion has three primary stars in it. And those three primary stars are specifically reflected within the layout of the Giza pyramid complex. So we definitely can spend a show on that, delving into those alignments, how the shafts are pointing towards specific stars, how I think there's so much knowledge compacted in the Great Pyramid itself. I mean, we could probably do 2 or 3 shows on that one alone. But definitely in the future we will address that and tighten it up with regards to how those particular constellations and stars are specifically aligned to the Giza pyramid complex. Definitely.
Good deal. So that's coming soon. So thanks for that that alley oop right there. So we'll definitely do a show on that. All right. So that's pretty much what we got right now. And again, when you hear this, you got questions, you got anything, you want us to talk about or anything like that, just hit us up on social media. On Facebook, we're at Cosmic Combo. Same handle on Instagram at Cosmic Combo. You can hit me up personally at Harut Life or at Push It Forward. You can hit up Brother Ra at Shechem on Instagram. And yeah, we can move from there. We'll definitely take that into consideration and, tie that into what we're doing. All right. So, for today's show, we got, a real interesting angle. And I think, to me, this is a real important show because you really get to, see the power of astrology, that you get to really see, that statement, as above, so below, into true form, and, when we look at right now, kind of what's going on politically, it's a real key time right now. We see reparations is a constant topic, in the political scene. We got over 24 Democratic nominees all lined up to go against Trump. So on this show, we're going to begin the conversation of seeing what does the stars have to say about this whole, presidential election. And, we're going to begin to look at and see how do these candidates measure up against the Donald. So I think you all enjoy this quite a bit. What do you think, Brother Ra?
I think that's an excellent segue into this particular hot topic of politics at this time, because there's a lot of moving parts, a lot of shifting pieces at work as far as who's going to be the next CEO of the United States of America. And so it's a free for all, if you will, right now. It really is. There's a lot of young candidates, which is surprising, and there's definitely some tenured ones as well. So it's a nice spread across the board. You have candidates that are from different racial backgrounds, which is phenomenal with regards to just showing the quote unquote American dream at work. However, we must understand that although it has a very promising look with regards to, of course, the Democratic nominees or potential nominees. And of course, like you said, Mr. Trump, he's already in office. So the incumbent always has a leg in. He always has his ability to kind of pull his folks in fairly quickly because he's already kind of on top of the hill, Capitol Hill, if you will. So the thing is that, when we look at how things operate, there's a two-sided coin to this, and in astrology, one thing we must understand is that everything has what we call a significator, or the proper term is karaka. And a significator is a planet that is affiliated with a specific area or a thing, such as democracy. And so democracy is governed by the planet Saturn. And the reason is because Saturn is the planet that truly governs the masses. It's considered a planet that deals with the common man, if you will. And the common man was originally intended in democracy to be the individual that could ascend to the highest ranks of government. However, there are other things at work and at play, and that it appears that democracy is at work. But remember, let's be honest. If you don't have any money, you're not going to be president, right? And having the greenback or the dollar bill with you is not of the common man. Just basic bare minimum. The average individual won't see the Oval Office, for lack of better words, because he's not in the green, right? He's not in the financial wherewithal to pull it down. So that's one of the things I want people to consider, is that, democracy is supposed to be of the common man, by the common man, that we all have the potential to be in office for whatever reason, if we can really pull the vote, right? And pulling the vote, it takes money. So there's an oxymoron with democracy and how democracy has been set up. The other thing is that, the powers that be are no dummies. So when I say the powers that be, this is the hidden hand, right? This is the so-called conspiracy theory that everyone kind of looks to. And this is a machine, Atef. This is a machine. When I say a machine, this thing was created, hundreds of years ago. So we're receiving the effects of that cause. The process of creating a country, a nation, is not just we all get together and we all want to have our own little land and do what we want to do. There are forces and powers that are set in play that create the momentum of a nation. And the people that founded this country, most of which were Masons. And I say founded, I'm talking about the real key players, the ones that really were the movers and the shakers. Of course, we know George Washington was obviously a Freemason, because even in the picture, I believe, of his inauguration, or one of his pictures, I'm not sure if it's the inauguration, he has a Masonic apron on. And, it's kind of like this: the way you start is the way you finish. You know what I mean?
Indeed.
So, if we're starting out, and people can, say that, he's not really technically the first president. I understand, there's even, articles and books out about, first 5 black presidents, and, there was other people that were really kind of the head, if you will. But when a nation makes a proclamation When a nation makes a statement, when a nation puts someone out in front, they're putting them out in front as a symbol. And that symbol speaks volumes. Symbols, of course, speak 1,000 words. So when you look at not only George Washington, even when you look at the dollar bill is there to show you, and it's the dollar bill, the $1 bill. When you look at that, that is a symbol to show you how things are set up within the construct of this nation. And of course, who's on the dollar bill? George Washington. George Washington, being a Freemason, a outspoken Freemason, and of course also an owner of slaves, you must remember. This is to tell you that the powers that run this nation are not ones that are really democratically oriented, if you will. They set up a democracy so that the appearances of the people have the vote would be there. But the real hidden hand is always the ones that we say the presidents are selected, not elected, right? They're pre-chosen, if you will. And then those that we kind of go with or run with, we think that we're pulling the strings, but that's not truly the case. With that being said, when we look at astrology and try to bring heaven down to earth, we have to look at what time it is for these particular preliminaries and things to happen. And so we have to use sidereal, right? Because sidereal is going to really show us where things are in real time. Not to knock anyone's tropical purviews on it, and I respect anyone's attempt to use this divine science to gain insight, but for all intents and purposes, our ancestors looked up, not down. So at the time of the election, the sun, and the election is pretty much set forth for November 3rd every year, or every 4 years. And it's funny that it's every 4 years, because 4 years is also another significant aspect of how reality works, in that we have a leap year every 4 years. The clocks are set back every 4 years. That's the purpose of the leap year, because if we didn't have a leap year, we would find that the seasons would shift with regards to the actual the months and the dates. So summer would actually end up being where winter is, and winter, summer would be in December, and vice versa. Winter would be in June, right? If we didn't have that particular mechanism to set it back. Well, in ancient times, and especially in ancient Kemet, we have what's called a Celtic calendar. That Celtic calendar allowed us to maintain the consistency over a given period of time, where we understood that the seasons, these things change. And so that we wanted to make sure that our time is correct, we created another calendar to coincide with that calendar. And the Celtic calendar had many more uses than that, but that was one of the uses, in that we could keep a very close track of time. When the elections happen, Atef, there's a particular arrangement in the heavens that happens every year, and that is when the sun is in debilitation. November 3rd, from October 15th to right around November 14th, right around there, that's when Libra is actually, the sun will be in Libra for 30 days. And so, knowing that, there's some deeper imports to that particular placement. One of the things is that the sun in Libra, typically, not always, because of course in astrology we have variables, we have things that can cancel other things out. And I say cancel not in the sense that it nullifies it, but it can negative can be turned to positive with certain placements. So it's not always that the sun is in debilitation, that it's horrible, or the sun is in exaltation, that it's great. It just means that that particular planet has the opportunity to release the highest imports of its significations, or the things that it rules. But the sun being in Libra, is debilitated. If in both systems, in any system that you particularly look at, when we use the heavens and placements and constellations, the sun is debilitated in Libra. And the sun is, number one, the planet of government. right? Number two, the sun is also symbolic of the ability to exact your intent, or what we would call will. And so your will, being in a debilitated state, is weakened, right? So that means that the people, and the sun in Libra, is the sign of scales, right? Libra is the sign of, one side, right, Democrats, right, versus the other side, right, Republicans. I mean, it fits perfectly with how things play out. And at that time, the decision-making process, which is governed by the sun, is thwarted. It's weakened. It's not nullified, but it definitely has there's a struggle. There's an internal battle. There's an internal fight. You don't feel confident. You don't feel that surety of hey, I need to do this. This needs to get done. So the powers that be, knowing this, right, and creating this system, have set forth the ability to implement their will within the construct of the people's will, although the people look like they're making the choice. So when you have a nation, and not all nations are this way, I'm not sure of how other nations are run. I live in America, and I'm not familiar with India or Canada or England. I'm not familiar with those countries and how they've done things. But I know here in America, and going back again to knowing that the founders of America are Freemasons, we can juxtapose that information right over to November 3rd, and that they set forth this process to make sure that the people will be the weakest in making the decision. And they could literally use campaigns, they can use slogans, they can use the media, they can use all sorts of and manners of things to manipulate the will of the people. There's a book called Illusions of Choice by M.K. Wheel, MKWEALE. And it's a book called Illusions of Choice, The Hidden Hand of Astrology Behind U.S. Presidential Elections. And I suggest, if you have the opportunity to read that book, it discusses things very specifically, and it also uses sidereal placements to understand how these things work. In fact, I'm just going to read a quick quote from it to kind of give you insight onto what we're talking about. This is in chapter 1, I believe, page 1 of chapter 1, and the second paragraph. It quotes, "If we approach the U.S. presidential election in the same way, it also has a set timing mechanism to its cycle. The founders of America were well versed in metaphysics and used universal principles to determine the timing for the best potential outcomes based on constellational and planetary influences. The founders who most influenced the definition of the election cycle were Benjamin Franklin, who was famous for his almanacs used for planting crops, which relied on astrological influences such as the moon phases, George Washington, who was a Freemason, and Thomas Jefferson, who was familiar with philosophy and esoteric principles and understood the significance of the astrological cycles such as solstices and equinoxes, as well as constellation and planetary influences," unquote. So that right there alone, right, is the death knell to the so-called process of democracy within America. Again, and here's the other side of the equation, in that Saturn is actually exalted in Libra. If we could set up an election process whereby we had Saturn exalted in Libra, where the man that is actually described as being the person or people that pull the strings within elections was exalted, that planet governing those particular aspects of this reality, then we would actually have a lot more power in making those things happen. So the opposite has taken place. We are weakened versus strengthened. The election that's coming up definitely has, like we talked about just a second ago, a lot of different moving parts, meaning that you can see the positioning happening if you're paying attention. And what we do in mundane astrology is we look at the not only the United States, because the United States has a chart as well. The United States has a overall background with regards to as above, so below. But we also look at the potential candidates, and we also look at the president and his particular chart. All these things are combined to give us a kind of a MRI of the time, if you will. We can see into what's going on.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, well, just wanted to, just let you all know that, before, we get in and start kind of going through the candidates and everything like that backdrop that Brother Rod just put forth is key to understand, just kind of put it in context, because that's going to skew what you see, what's happening in the charts, what you see in the stars, those different elements that, those, different, behind the scenes, kind of plays that's being called shows up in the stars. So you have to really set that record straight before you go forth and start trying to determine kind of where we see the outcome is coming.
Absolutely,
right?
Brother. Absolutely. We, the heavens will always win, in the end. Of course, we have a will, which the will is really used to maximize, right, the effects that we are given within our destiny. So it's not that, people say, well, astrology, come on, man, I have free will, right? I have free will, which there's no such thing, right? That's a misnomer, right? There's no such thing as a free will. You have a will that allows you to be free. There's a difference, right? Free will means that you have free reign to do what you like to do, right? And let's just give a quick example, right? Schwarzenegger, right? Arnold Schwarzenegger, Mr. Terminator, right? He is or was, I'm not sure. I don't think he's still. I know he's not any longer, but he was the governor of California, right? And he was, quote unquote, democratically elected. He sat in office, right? Did his term, did his deal, and would like to run for president of the United States. I'm sure, a lot of people would lean in that direction. But guess what? There's rules and there's laws that prohibit that. And, just another example is someone else coming from another country. Let's say the person is born in India and he wants to be president of the United States. Well, laws and rules have a far-reaching effect when it comes to governing people. And there's a law or a rule that says that you have to be born in the United States of America to be a president of the United States. So that means that there's already something in motion. That doesn't mean that can't be changed. That doesn't mean it can't be altered, but it would take a momentous force. It would take a overwhelming force of energy to change that. So that means that there is something that is preset that is not under your control, that your free will cannot thwart, that your will has to go hand in hand with. Just as if I didn't choose the body I was born into, per se. I didn't choose the city I was born into. I didn't choose the family I was born into. Right? And until I became an adult, I had very little choice of what I ate, what I watched, what I listened to. So when we talk about, free will and astrology, we have to understand that there is a structure, a power structure that is preset called destiny that we have to walk through and walk with. And the will allows us to make the optimal choices to best yield, to get the best outcome out of those potentials, if you will. They say, what is the old saying? Make lemonade out of lemons, if you will. So, these things are preset. This is destiny. This is things that you and I and no one else really can alter. being that the divine is in full control. So, with that being said, we look at the options, quote unquote, that we have to pull from. Now, there's a lot of different people on the Democratic side that are running. We have a long list. And, that's the way it's supposed to work. If it were really designed and created to do what it's supposed to do, it's supposed to work that way. You're supposed to have a plethora of people to pull from, to get to know, to learn about, to study, to even reach out to their campaigns. That's the way it appears that, hey, that's, if in an ideal world, it would be great. However, those individuals have destinies as well, right? And you best believe that the people that are pulling the strings know those destinies. In fact, the United States began to put the time of birth on the birth certificates for very specific reasons. There's another great book I would recommend for people to read, and it's a book about Freemasonry. It talks about how Freemasons use astrology, literally. I mean, if you understand degrees and 30 degrees, 33 degrees, and Masonry is based on degrees, right? Then you pretty much can quickly make the connection that they have a very good understanding of how these things work, and they use sidereal astrology once again. So, talking about one of the candidates, for example, and leaning in on trying to gain some insight on things, Mr. Biden, right? He's kind of out there right now, right? He's the one that, if you will, is I would say the head of the Democratic process. The Democratic Party with regards to being the next selectee, right? But Mr. Biden, he has a destiny. And when we look at his destiny, we can clearly see that there is some forces at work that will be playing out with regards to this election. And he is a 76-year-old man. He's up there in age. Doesn't mean that because you're older doesn't mean you won't be elected. Historically speaking, there's been some presidents. Ronald Reagan wasn't spring chicken when he got in office. So, that doesn't necessarily stop you per se, but it is a factor, because you must understand that. Let's look at the shaping factors, if you will. We both know about shaping factors, right?
Yeah.
Shaping factors are things that are going to kind of, lean in and have an effect on how things come to manifestation. Well, being that younger folks are now becoming more populous, right? That, of course, as time goes on, the old heads have to leave off, and the new crew comes in, and the youth kind of take over and begin to do things with regards to their freedoms, if you will. So the youth kind of look at, hey, he's an older guy. He might not last in office so long if he's not in fit health, which is another aspect we look at. All these things are factored in with regards to how people think, how people vote. In addition to that, however, because of his age and things of that nature, we also have some very prominent astrological placements in his destiny. And we have a good time on him. We always want to have a good time when we talk about people. And I have made mistakes on, being an astrologer and thinking that, my skill set is, this, that, and the other, and I don't have a time. Times are crucial in making those decisions, because the time creates the actual ascendant. And from the ascendant, we can see how everything's placed in the construct of that person's destiny. So go ahead, brother.
Now, hold on, real quick. So, especially a lot of people coming from, the Western astrology, tropical astrology perspective, when we say ascendant, we're talking about the rising sign. All right. So just a quick little, kind of self note to yourself that when we say ascendant, it's the rising sign.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Yes, sir. The rising sign. Another term will be Lagna, right? In the Hindu or the Jyotish term, or in India, it would be Lagna, 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 ascendant, rising. It's all the same. His ascendant or rising is Scorpio. And right now, Jupiter is transiting Scorpio. It's retrograde. It will stay in Scorpio for a little while, and then it's going to leave Scorpio very quickly. And then right around November-ish, November, December, is going to move into Sagittarius. So right now, Joe Biden has Jupiter in his ascendant. Jupiter is a planet that gives you expansion. It brings you, quote unquote, what they call luck. It's really no such thing, but it brings you, quote unquote, luck. It brings you opportunities, optimism. It makes you feel good, right? It gives you power, like you can do anything in this world. Well, it's going to shift, right? It's going to change over into Sagittarius, like I said, towards the end of the year. And that will definitely have a different outcome with how, number one, he's received, how he's perceived within the Democratic Party. And we can actually see that, he just recently had a debate with Kamala. Is that right, brother? Didn't you have a debate with Ms. Harris?
Well, they had the whole debate, but they had a little special exchange with each other where, Kamala kind of singled him out and kind of schooled him a little bit.
Exactly. So that kind of singling out and that diatribe that they had, it definitely put a spin on the people's mind with regards to how this individual can handle that particular office, or if he's ready, right? Not only that, when these things begin to move and shift, Saturn is going to also move out of Sagittarius, which is in his second house. It'll move into his third house. And that presents a definite challenge because it's going to begin to oppose his natal Jupiter. And that is not one that I would say I would want to have if I were running for office. Jupiter is a planet that we definitely want to have on our side and have minimally impacted with regards to any type of heavy-duty planets, meaning Jupiter, the northern and southern node of the moon, and even any type of Jupiter opposition within itself. So, Saturn will move into to Capricorn, right? It will be there for 2.5 years. And so when it begins to move into Capricorn, it's going to literally oppose that planet that gives that optimism within this chart. So that definitely will slow his momentum. And I just don't see how he can maintain that particular momentum within the construct of the political race. He's going to slow down. That's what Saturn will do. It slows you down. It tests you. It restricts you. It delays you. It can deny you depending upon other placements within the chart. And we're not going to go through every aspect of their charts. We're just going to touch on some key points to kind of keep us, keep our ear to the street and keep us watching. We will do this again, of course, in the future, when these things have shifted, the moving pieces have kind of fell into place, and we will come back and revisit these things and really tighten it up and really give a good, clear, concise picture of who will really be selected, not elected. The other piece I want to mention is that with regards to the Saturn in the third house rules our ability to kind of carry our intellect, if you will, carry a good conversation, be thorough with regards to our dialogue, right? And it didn't look too good for him with Ms. Harris. She lit him up, right? And he really didn't come back very strong. He didn't have that quick wit. He couldn't hit her where it hurts, so to speak. He couldn't draw a nub to be able to kind of equate the powers that be. He couldn't really say, hey, you know what? Well, what about this? What about that? And in regard to this, that, and the other, that's a very dry response. So that's, I would definitely say that he's going to have a hard road ahead of him with regards to getting in that particular seat. Although he has some things on his side. He's been in politics for, since forever, right? Since before we were born, right? He's been in politics. He's been in a position, right, that he was able to experience being close to that office, being close to that the understanding of what it takes to do it. So it's not like he's completely, I'm not throwing him out, the baby out with the bathwater, so to speak. But I am saying that he is definitely going to have a very, very, very challenging time, especially given the fact that these other younger candidates are they're sharp, they're on it, they're ready, they're hungry, right? And he better, definitely go back to the drawing board and find some things to do if he intends on being selected, right? Moving into another candidate here. Go ahead. Sure.
And hold on one second, brother. So, just to make it clear, we don't have a preference either way it goes. So we're approaching this, from purely from an objective point of view. We don't lean towards any candidate or anything like that. We're just looking at the charts and measuring it from that
Absolutely,
perspective.
brother. They
Would
say
you
I don't
agree?
have a dog in this race, right? I'm not vested either way. People ask me, do I vote? And I say, I understand how things work, so you can vote all you will. But if you're voting, you're just pushing buttons that have already been pushed, if you will. So, the next individual I want to touch on, and I'm kind of giving a spread to go, a little bit back and forth here, because Biden is really at the top right now. And that's just because, again, of all the things that are under his belt, all the tenure, all the experience, and of course, he's got that money too, right? That all is really in his favor. But again, there's forces that are beyond his control, right? And we will see how those forces play out with regards to seeing if he will actually be the one that heads up Trump. The next guy I want to talk about here is Yang, and Andrew Yang. And, bright young fella, definitely has a future in politics. And for all intents and purposes, the way he looks with regards to his abilities, I wouldn't deny him at all. He's very intelligent. I've heard him a few times. However, again, right, and we always have to keep in mind that there's forces that are at play. There are things that are working even beyond those that are pulling the strings to even control their actions, even though they know what those strings are. And I didn't also touch on another piece of the puzzle with regards to these particular charts, and that's called the Dasha period. And the Dasha period I'm not going to touch upon right now, because I just want to kind of give a scant view of how the transits are working. We're talking transits, and also when we really do predict wholeheartedly, we use Dashas, we use a whole assortment of different things to get the outcome of what we're looking at. But transits alone produce a phenomenal, even without dashas. And Western astrology doesn't have a dasha system. So they primarily go based on transits. So that's why I'm really honing in on that, because it's universal for both systems. If I got into dashas, then we would have to talk about different things, different placements, and so forth. And I just don't want to take the show in that direction this time, but we will definitely address it when we come around again to talk about it in a future date.
It'll be a 2-hour show.
Oh, no doubt, because dashas are complex. We have to line it with this particular type of harmonic of the chart. Harmonics are called Vargas in Jyotish or in Indian astrology. And so, it's a very complex system that we just don't have the time to address today, but we would definitely do that in the future for those candidates when they slim it down a little bit.
Absolutely.
But transit-wise, we still can see profound information, and it's very powerful because if I didn't have a system to use, I would deal with transits before I deal with dashas. Although that is not what's properly in vogue. Mostly people deal with dashas and then transits. I work the opposite way because my experience has led me to understand that transits, they're just universal. It doesn't matter what time, this, that, and the other. Even in fact, if I didn't have a time, even without a time, I can still see the aspects of planets. So that's why I use it first, because it literally, you can see in very quickly and get a very good understanding of what's going on. Dashas are more how the person really perceives the reality, how they kind of filter that reality and how that reality looks and kind of plays out in their own mind, and whatever's in the mind typically will manifest in reality. So back to Mr. Andrew Yang here. Andrew Yang is a very, like I said, very bright individual, and it's not to knock anything of his abilities or to say that because things happen, strange things happen. Powers that be can use individuals. They might say, hey, this person, we can pull him and use him and get him to do what our bidding is. So why not? Let's put him in office. But for the most part, from what I see, he would not be one of those individuals they're going to use. And the reason is because, number one, Saturn right now is in his ascendant. He's Sagittarius ascendant or Sagittarius rising. And Saturn is right over him, right? It's dead on, locked in on him. And with that particular heaviness over you, with those testings, if you will, you're constantly being tested and tested and tested and tested. And it's not to say that America's not ready. I'm not saying that, because we actually, of course, we had a black president, or biracial president, really. We didn't have a black president. We had a biracial president. Most people don't get that. He's not fully what we would say, quote unquote, black. Not to say he didn't have experience as a black man. He married a black woman. He had black children. I get it. I understand it. I'm not in disagreement on that. But if we really pull the veil down, right, the people that raised him were not African American. They were not black. He's raised by the Caucasian side of his family, or his lineage rather. But because of the fact that he's broken that barrier, right, it leaves it more or less more open for alternative ethnicities to get into office. And Yang is of Asian descent. And the pulse of America right now, if you watch very carefully with regards to Trump, with regards to the racial tension, if you will, and we can feel it. I mean, it's never, I was a kid and I didn't feel it like this. And you would think that further back in time, you would have felt more racial tension, but it's even stronger now than when I was a young man. So that being said, that racial tension, and we're talking shaping factors. Astrology is not just astrology. We don't just go look at things in the sky and bring it down to the physical realm. We say, hey, what are all the things that are going on in the context of these particular portents? What are the things that are going on with regards to how the sky is moving? So we add it all in to really get a concise picture. And America is not fully ready to have a person of Asian descent in office. That's number one. Not to say that, it couldn't happen, like I said, but yeah, it's just when you look at the destiny in the person's horoscope or their chart, you can see why, right? Saturn is over his first house. And for him to make it this far, it speaks volumes. But you get to a point where they call it the glass ceiling, right? And there's that point where you just can't go any further. And if I understand in the polls, I kind of I peer in, I don't follow it, like stripe for stripe, pound for pound, dot for dot, but I do peer in, I do look, and I do take into consideration the pulse of what's going on, keeping your ear to the street and understanding what's going on around you. And that's very pertinent for people to do so that they really do get an understanding of what's happening in their nation. But Saturn being in the first house, it speaks volumes. It really does. It says a overwhelming wait till later, if you will, right? Now's not your time, right? You want to wait. You want to plan a little bit differently. There's another opportunity that may come down the road. That's what Saturn does. He doesn't completely deny. He delays, right? If we break another glass ceiling, let's say with the woman in office, right? Let's say we get a woman in office. We haven't even got to a woman yet. We're just scraping with the first biracial president, right? We're trying to, when the first woman, and it's phenomenal because other countries have these leaders as women, right? But America, it shows you the pulse of America and that it's still slow coming for a woman to struggle to get into that position. Hillary Clinton, right? Some will call her Billary, right?
Billary.
Billary, right? She was a close call for Mr. Obama, right? I mean, she was the runner-up, right? But it shows that America would rather have a black man, or the perception of a black man, than a woman at that time. That's what I'm saying as far as the pulse.
Interesting. And here's another thing too, and I'm not sure if you was about to head this direction, but I mean, if this matters for anything, and it probably doesn't, not that much, but they say that Asian Americans are the lowest voter bloc, in the United States, and they're not known for their political participation. He possibly could need that, in a situation like this.
Absolutely. Let's use Obama. I mean, Obama, the black vote, quote unquote, right? Securing that African American vote, which of course we make very little of the populace with regards to the so-called census and what they say our numbers are. I mean, 40 million at best, right? I mean, and we have almost 350 million people in the country. That tells you a lot, right? That vote is so key and so pertinent to getting in office. Although it's not an overwhelming landslide of or amount of people, it's still very prominent with regards to I'm talking the pulse of America, the perception of America, the perception of Americans about themselves, about their government, and so forth. So definitely, I didn't even know that, brother. Thank you for letting us know that, because I don't follow politics to that level, but I do, keep, like I said, my ear to the street in that, by population, they're very small, just even in comparison to African Americans, they're small. Having the ability to pull the vote from these different groups and people. You have elderly. That's another one, right? The elderly kind of like to see the elderly in office. You know what I mean? Or someone that has experience, someone that's older, someone that kind of is from the old school, if you know what I mean, right? And that's where Biden's got that, right? He's got that, right? Yeah. But there's a new boy. There's a new boy on the block, and the new boy on the block being of Asian descent it doesn't bode well for him right now. In the future, he definitely could be a runner. In fact, chart-wise, as far as his horoscope, he definitely has a very powerful horoscope to put him in that position. But looking at it again, Saturn in the ascendant, Saturn in the first house, and we're talking about 30 degrees, right? When I say in the first house or the ascendant, we're talking about a full 30 degrees. So, of course, Saturn right now is transiting at 23 degrees Sagittarius retrograde, right? So it's moving backwards. But I look at the whole house to say whatever's in that house is being affected, right? Just like if you have a home, right? You might be in one part of the house and then someone be in another part of the house. But if you make enough noise, right, you can have an impact on that person in your house. Well, Saturn's the noisemaker. He's the big boy in the block. He takes 30 years to make a complete transit, right? He's the slowest moving inner planet, or so not inner planet, but slowest moving planet with regards to what we use, because we do use the outer planets, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, but in a very different way and not on a personal level as far as the chart is concerned. We use it, again, more as based on businesses, things that have a longevity, nations, things like that. We can use the outer planets in a very key way that way. But when it comes to looking at an individual's chart, we kind of put them to the backside, if you will. And Saturn being in his ascendant, right, is at 23 degrees. His natal Saturn is 21 degrees Gemini. So they're almost within an exact opposition. And remember, I said a little earlier that when Saturn's at play, you want to have Saturn on your side because Saturn rules democracy. It rules the ability to gather the influx of the lower man or the common man's vote, right? And it's just not in his favor. They're in opposition. Opposition means that it's like me looking at across from another person. I'm ready to fight, right? I'm ready to go toe to toe, right? And Saturn being in opposition to itself in his natal chart, it slows things, it tests things. It doesn't give you the force and the momentum, right, to get things done. And like I said, right, America's just not really ready to have that face of America look like Andrew Yang.
Yeah, I can see.
He has some other things, and not to cut you off, brother. He has some other things. Jupiter will be in his ascendant very soon, right? Saturn will be in his second house when it does move over into Capricorn. However, when Saturn's in his second house, it will conjunct Venus. It will conjunct Moon. It will conjunct Mercury in his second house. So again, Saturn will then put more of a slowing pattern with regards to that appeal that most people are looking for. So if I had to really just draw the line, I say not now for Mr. Yang, but maybe later. The last one I want to touch on is Harris. And before we get into Harris, right? And like I said, there's more candidates. I know Elizabeth Warren, she's one that definitely is in the limelight and has a lot of tenure, has a lot of the ability to pull the vote from the old school, if you will. So I'm not knocking her as well at all. I haven't pulled her data. I don't have a good strong time for her, so it's very difficult for me to again make those calls. We have to have a strong time. Without a strong time, Andrew Yang has a strong time, Biden has a strong time, Harris has a strong time. That's really why I'm using these, because those are the ones that I can literally see into their destiny and say yay, nay, maybe, possibly later, and so forth. So not to say that she's not in the running, definitely is. She's out there, she's making headlines, she's doing her thing. Just that I don't have a good time, so I don't want to speak unintelligently about her particular circumstances. But moving into Harris, Harris is a phenomenal one here, and as you can see, right, she's sharp, right? She is sharp, and reason being, we look at the particular apparatus with regards to who she is, right? And she's a Gemini ascendant, right? She's wicked with words, right?
Oh yeah.
If you could,
she ain't no joke.
she's when it comes to those words, man. She's when I saw that, I said, "Whoa, man!" When she put they had the picture of her up there, right, of her as a child, and said, "I'm affected," and I mean, Biden just got blown out with that, man. I was like, wow, like what was that, right?
All you can do is smile. All you can do is sit there and smile with his team and try to keep a straight face.
Oh man, he should have been bobbing and weaving, man, But he was like dead in his, slew footed, man. He couldn't move, right? And she's Gemini ascendant, Geminis, man, they're word craft. That's what they do. They literally are word crafters. They have the ability to use the gift of gab like you would not believe, and a phenomenal technique to understand what the power of a sign has, an ascendant sign, that is. I mean, if you want to understand the sign itself, you have to look at it from the sign as being the ascendant, if you will. And so with Gemini being the first house, right? Wherever the sun rules for that sign is the power that they have, right? So for Geminis, right, the sun rules the third house, right? So they have the power of speech. They have the power of communication. They have the power of expression, right? The power of intellect, right? Because the third house rules these things. So given that, right, she has that power, and she used that power as everyone could see, right? However, when we look at the transits and look at how things are moving, right? Saturn is in the seventh house for her, right? And you'll hear me go to Saturn over and over because remember, Saturn again is the planet of democracy, quote unquote. So we want to look at that planet to see how it's going to move, how it's going to act, what it's doing right now, and what it will do November 3rd, 2020. But
now you mean Saturn's in her seventh house transiting,
yes,
right?
Not natally, right? Natally, Saturn is in her ninth house, which gives her a lot of power, right? It's in its own sign in Aquarius, right? So it definitely, she's no joke. I mean, she has a high-powered mind, very high-powered mind. As you can see, I mean, looking at her history, and as far as her, ability to do law, right? The ninth house is law, right? So, bar none, right? She's a lawyer, right? However, Saturn in transit is in her seventh house. And, the seventh house deals with opponents, right? As it deals with the people that we deal with on a one-to-one level. The sixth house does rule enemies, but the seventh house is like who you're facing, who's in front of you, who's coming at you, right? The sixth house is kind of who's coming at you from the side, who's coming at you from the back, who's coming at you from around the corner, right? Those are your enemies. But the seventh house is also enemies as well. Most people don't know, right? And, they say, people say, well, the seventh house is marriage. How can marriage, be the house of enemies? There's an old saying, right? There's a thin line between what, brother?
Love and hate.
Right. And so, when you go through the divorce, right, your wife turns into your enemy real quick, right? So the seventh house is also enemies as well. And so the seventh house being the Saturn tenanting the seventh house, it's slowing things down, right? It looks back. The seventh house is directly opposed from the first, so it looks right back at her. Right? It's looking at her literally from across the room, right? But it also means that when these things shift and move, Jupiter will move into her seventh house, from the sixth house, move into her seventh house, which gives her power. Right. It will literally now the opponents will be moved out of the way. Right. The opponents will now she can deal with them in a much easier way. Right. Because she's going through the testing. Have you seen it? Kind of she's going through a testing period. If you're paying attention. Right. She's going through a testing period. Right. She's being vetted. Right.
She's being vetted hard. She's facing
Saturn
a lot.
There you go, brother. There you go. You said it, man. Saturn is the hardest planet. Literally, is the hardest, right? So she's going through it, but because Saturn is placed so prominently in her chart, she has those powers of endurance. I mean, you could see she's hard right back. She is no joke. She's not batting an eye, right? It's bring it. Right. And so that energy with her is it's strong. You can see her. She's confident. Right. She doesn't have a leak in a, she doesn't they're trying to poke holes in her and no leak is sprung. I mean, of course, there's been some things with regards to the whole reparations piece. I know about that, right? And she's definitely done a Gemini move, right? Geminis have the ability to shift very quickly, right? So she's done that, and she may do it again and again and again, right, until she feels that she's in position to exact her will. But for all intents and purposes, right, she's hung out. Despite those onslaughts, she's still there, right, and in the running. So Saturn will move into her her eighth house, excuse me, and Saturn in the eighth house does some strange things. It can cause you all kinds of challenges and issues, and things that you wouldn't expect to happen. That's what the eighth house is all about: sudden, unexpected events. But at the same time, Saturn will be in its own sign in the eighth house, and Saturn rules the eighth and ninth house for her. So it's not so much it's not really a bad placement per se. It can also give you long life as well if Saturn's in the eighth house strong. So it's a strange thing, right? But Jupiter will be in the seventh, Saturn will be in the eighth. Definitely looking very promising with regards to her being in that running when we have the next conversation. I would be surprised if she drops out and it falls to the wayside by then. I would see pick up momentum and gain a lot more followings with regards to her debating skill, which of course Gemini primarily has. They have that debating skill. It's funny, just back to Biden, Scorpio ascendants, a lot of times they can use words just like anyone else can, but they're just not word masters. You know what I mean? Like, they can go in deep, they can get things out. I have an aunt, one of my aunt is a Scorpio ascendant, and she was in media for years. She was actually a newscaster in Washington, D.C. for quite some time. So not to say they can't use words. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying in the limelight, right, in the public eye, right, when you have to think on your feet, you have to get called to task, right? They're not the greatest at that, right? It's a strange challenge for them that they'll come back maybe a little later and have something, but at that time, that's just not their best suit. Well, Geminis are suited for this, right? They literally can do this blindfolded, right? And so I'm saying that in that, she is one of the ones that I would foresee as definitely being in the runnings when we have the next conversation about who's going to be selected on November 3rd, 2020. Moving on, and I want to go to the other side, right? I don't want anyone to feel like, oh man, he must be a Democrat. I'm neither, right? I'm not, like I said, I don't have a dog in this race, not so ever, right? Whomever could get in, I already know it's a process, and it's things that are behind the scenes that are moving this into position. But Mr. Donald Trump, right? Now, Donald, when he was selected, right, he had some strange comment. His chart has what's called a Kalsarpa yoga. And that's when all of the planets are on one side of the chart, and they're kind of bordered or bound by the nodes, Rahu and Ketu, or the northern node and southern node of the moon. Right? They're within the belly of the serpent, if you will. And that placement is very strange because it can bring you to prominence. It really can. A lot of people that have Kalsarpa yogas have become very prominent. However, it can also bring you to the valley as well. And Mr. Trump, right now, as we speak, he has Saturn in Sagittarius, right, in his fifth house. Now, by the way, if you want to know which house is politics, the fifth house is politics, if we had to narrow it down, right? The fifth house is the house of politics, right? So he has Saturn, right, in the house of politics right now. He's being tested as well, right? Definitely not a popular guy with regards to a lot of the populace of the United States of America. It's kind of split, like either it's a love-hate relationship, if you will. Either you love him or you hate him, right? And so with that being said, when Saturn begins to really start to move forward again, because remember we said it's retrograde, when it begins to move forward again, right? More testing is coming to this guy, more opposition, more restrictions, more being less. He's going to become less and less popular, right? But he'll still be in the running because of course, his position at this current time. However, I'm just kind of note all the way around to November 3rd on this guy, because I don't have to go through the process of explaining him getting into office because he's already there. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So Saturn, right, on November 3rd, 2020 would be at 2 degrees Capricorn, right? And Saturn in his natal chart is 0 degrees Cancer. So that means that when this particular event takes place, he will literally be in the crosshairs. When I say crosshairs, I'm talking about, right, 1 and 7, 1 and 7, and 4 and 10. It's like a cross, right? He's in the crosshairs of Saturn, right? This will be a definite time when I foresee he more than likely will not get the popular vote. Now, again, popular vote doesn't always mean anything, right? Because we've seen that, right? To the powers that be, when they want somebody in there, they'll be there.
Time and time again.
Right. So like, that's what I'm saying, is that this is a selection process, not an election process. But the divine, the supreme being, God, for lack of better words, right? We call it Natir, right? It has the ability to show you, like, look, I don't care what they do, right? It's my show, right? I literally am the one that runs this, right? My time is the time, even though, guess what, the powers that be, they use God's time, don't they? Right? But Saturn will be in direct opposition within a 2-degree orb. When I say orb, we're talking about the zodiac as a circle. So an orb is just a piece of that circle, right? A curve of that circle. Within 2 degrees, Saturn will be in opposition to Saturn. That means that even right before the time of election, Saturn's going to hit right on that 0 degrees, then 1 degree, then 2 degrees. So at the time of election, he's literally going to be, like I said, in the crosshairs, right, of the planet that represents death, right? So that being said, I would foresee him not being reelected. Now, of course, let's go back to the shaping factors. This guy's had a very haphazard or crazy track record, right, with his whole presidency. I mean, I'm surprised he hasn't been impeached by now. I'm serious. Like I even said he would be. And when you understand the powers that be, that they're pulling these strings, most people will have, I mean, he would have been impeached. He obstructed justice. I mean, and for all intents and purposes, he really did. Like, he changed. Who does that? Who changes the person that's investigating you out to another guy and then out to another guy? Like, that is just insane, right?
Yeah.
But right, but it shows you
Teflon Don.
Hey, Teflon Don, man. Like, this guy is like, what's up? Like, something's going on. Like, you can see, like, there's things that are being moved in position, and he's kept in position so that agendas can be met. But, you know, for all intents and purposes, the guy would have been, had Obama done what he did, oh man, he'd be on nailed to the cross, man.
Out of here.
You know, he would have been out of there quickly, right? If Obama had an investigation and said, no, change the guy who's investigating me, I don't like him, he's not good. Well, yeah, you're going to say that because you don't want to be revealed, right? Had Obama done that, it would have been a done deal, right? So we can see that there's something, right? These shaping forces are there, right, to carry these agendas out. But again, he has a very a strange track record with regards to this presidency. And so when these things kind of come to a head on November 3rd, 2020, the process of selection I would foresee as removing him from office. Not only that, Atef, Saturn will be in opposition to Venus by degree. Venus is at 2 degrees Cancer. Saturn will be at 2 degrees Capricorn. And Saturn will be in the house of enemies, right? And Venus is in the house of loss, as is Saturn, the 12th house of loss. So I foresee, right, that, and again, we know that the popular vote doesn't mean really that the person will get in office, but I'm saying the populace itself will not feel him right, they won't put him in that position, right, to be able to be selected, right? He will literally be, right, the person that's looking outside in, if you will. So, those are the real fundamental points I want to touch on. There's other things, of course, that we could go into, how the nodes are moving. The nodes definitely have an impact. I haven't discussed America's chart with regards to these potentials. So, of course, these are all, again, factors that we have to add in to get a very clear, concise picture. But for the most part, you can see these things manifesting in front of you with regards to how the heavens are moving. Does this make pretty good sense to you, brother? Is it pretty clear? Is there anything that you feel I didn't maybe cover or touch?
No, I mean, I think that's perfect. It's just so much more we can get into, but that's why we have to break this particular subject up in a couple parts. We'll probably do about 2 or 3, maybe even 4, of this topic alone, because it's a very, very interesting topic, and it's important too, because we're at a kind of real interesting period in history, as far as what direction the country's going to go into, and just how everyone's survival and well-being is going to be. So this is a excellent topic indeed. I definitely appreciate you going into this in the depth that you have.
Oh, brother, hey, man, this is what I do. This is what I do. So it's always a pleasure, King, to drop these gems to the people and, to really get the people's eyes open and get them studying, get the people out there. They can take a look themselves. That's why I recommend readings. I recommend books that you can go research for yourself. The same books I read, the same books anyone else can read, and gather the same, deduct the same point. So, but it's definitely my pleasure, man, and I look forward to doing more of these as we move forward into the future.
Absolutely. So, we're going to go ahead and table it right there. Once again, this podcast is brought to you by Push It Forward Media Group and Calipurusha Astrology. You can find Push It Forward Media Group at pushitforwardfwd.com, and you can find us on Instagram at pushitforward, pushitfwd, and there you can check out our latest content, the stuff that we're producing. You can also check out Veg Kingdom at pushitforward.com, and you can see us at our own Instagram page. We post a lot of things about vegan food and vegan restaurants and different things like that at Veg Kingdom TV on Instagram. And Brother Raw, let them know how they can get in contact you with Calipurusha.
Definitely. You can also reach out to me at Calipurusha Astrology at gmail.com. I'm also on YouTube as well, and I was going to do one of the most prominent, or the most prominent, if not the most prominent, one of the most prominent entertainers in the world, but I'm going to table that for that individual's date of birth, right? We're going to do that when his birthday rolls around. But there will be definitely a show dropping down on the United States of America's chart / horoscope. So that's going to definitely be on Calipurusha Astrology on YouTube. Tune in there. keep your eyes and ears posted. It will be coming. You can also find me on Facebook at Shechem Ra, and also on IG as well. It should be Shechem Ra or just Shechem on IG. So if you have any questions, or if you have any type of charts that you want to have done, reach out and we will definitely take care of the people.
Absolutely. So, yeah, man, that's pretty much a wrap. So, again, if you got any questions, any topics, any things that we didn't cover, any things that you want to hear from us, go ahead and get in those comment sections, DM us, hit us up on Instagram, on Facebook, or you can even email us. You can email your questions at Cosmic Convos Podcast at gmail.com. So that's COSMICCONV as in Victor, S podcast at gmail.com. All right. So you can email your questions there, and we'll definitely get back with you or address it on the show. All right. So that's pretty much all that I have. And keep tuning in, like, subscribe, share this with your family, your friends, your coworkers, anybody that that's astrologically curious. And we'll see you next week. All right. Peace.